Welcome back. Today I want to talk about something that I feel is a super saturated topic. Quitting jobs and moving abroad. Everyone wants to try that, right? And I feel like most quit your job and run videos end with the person finding wild success on the other side. But we don't really talk enough about the face plants. Like it doesn't always work out, and it isn't all just pack your bags and fly away. There's real emotion and a lot of bravery involved, especially your first time doing it. And my first time, I honestly thought passion would somehow cover the bills when I ran. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Welcome back to Jamaica Made Me Do It. And Jamaica certainly made me recklessly abandon my life in ways that I would never recommend to anybody. So when I was 39, I didn't even wait until midlife when most people do this. When I was 39, I quit my secure government career in Canada and I packed up my entire life and tried moving to Jamaica with about $3,000 in the bank. No joke. I had no job and no plan for earning a substantial income. I just had big ideas of grandeur and a 2-year-old Jamaica blog. And looking back now at 53 years old, I can honestly tell you, this may look and sound like courage, but it was actually a spectacular faceplant due to lack of planning. The funny thing is almost everyone thinks that this story is about moving to Jamaica. It really isn't, though. It's more about what it feels like to leave a life you've completely outgrown. If I hadn't made that unbelievably reckless decision, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today because I would have nothing to talk about. Everything that happened over the following 8 years, every friendship, every mistake, every opportunity, every single story all started with one resignation email. So let me tell you what that actually felt like. We'll start with my corporate life. I worked for the municipal government for 10 years. It's a very cushy union job that fully funded my travel addiction. And on paper, it was exactly the kind of job you're supposed to want. Good salary, brilliant benefits, pension, the kind of career people spend 35 years building. And I'll tell you, today, that pension, the one I don't have, actually sounds pretty attractive. But back then, it felt like someone was slowly shrinking my soul. I commuted for 10 years into the downtown core by transit every single day because I didn't want to afford the $20 a day it cost to park in the city center back then. In my mind, 1 month's worth of parking fees and gas was about the third of a cost of a flight to Jamaica. That's how my brain worked back in those days. I compared everything to the cost of flying to Jamaica. Also, by taking transit, I was allowing someone else to suffer with the madness of rush hour traffic both ways. Once I got on the train, I would sit myself in an empty seat, turn up my headphones, and drown out the world by listening to reggae music, of course. For the last couple of years of my job, I would trot along like a brainwashed soldier, and I felt like I was drowning in sorrow. The repetition was for the mentally insane. I felt like all of this was killing me slowly on the inside, and soon there would be nothing left but a hollow shell of Christy who used to live inside, occupy this body. Over time, I became short-tempered and mean to the people I worked with. My coworkers actually hung a picture of an angry bluebird at my desk with a caption that said, "Do I look like the bluebird of happiness?" True story. I'm still friends with them today. We still laugh about that today. A defining moment in my life of commuting was one morning about 4 months before I actually quit the job. I was standing on the packed train riding to work and reading random tweets on Twitter. And one of the tweets mentioned something about commuting related to stress and depression. I couldn't resist, so I clicked the link and read a lengthy article, all while relishing in the irony that I was reading an article about stress and depression related to commuting while I was commuting. I think the universe planted that link there as a final kick in the ass to do something about my situation instead of just lamenting about it every single day. Now, let's be clear, Jamaica was not an escape for me. People always assume I was running away from something, but I wasn't, I don't think. I was running toward something else. Like it felt like I was running toward the what if, like what if I could make it work? By then I'd already been to Jamaica 14 times. I knew the island and I knew what I loved there. But I also knew that Vacation Christy and living in Jamaica Christy were about to come head to head, and they were two very different people. Then came decision time. And before actually making this decision, I toyed with it for years. And as time came closer, I teetered with the decision of actually, should I quit my job or should I just take an unpaid leave of absence just in case? But somehow I had this mental block against the leave of absence because in the back of my head, that meant predetermined failure. Like if I had a backup plan, then there was room to fail. I was so set on just getting the hell out of Dodge that no forethought or backup plans entered my mind at all. Even though I'd been working up to my extended stay in Jamaica for years, nothing could have prepared me for the feeling on the day that I resigned from my job. It was almost a split-second decision, and the feeling of freedom coupled with sheer uncertainty, it was overwhelming. The uncertainty was actually so heavy that I didn't even hit the send button on my resignation email myself. I made my coworker do it, and then it was done. 2 weeks notice. As soon as my department knew that I did it, people started trickling in and out for the rest of the day asking if it was true, and I totally bucked up and faked my confidence and saying, yeah, it's true, like acting all excited, but it was crushing me inside. And in 4 weeks, I would not only be gone from this career, I would be gone from Canada. And even though the excitement was welling up inside me, I can't lie, so was the fear. Once I finished my 2 final weeks of work and the big going away party happened on the last Friday after work, it was an awesome night. It was really awesome. And people I didn't even talk to regularly at work came out to wish me luck and tell me what an inspiration I was. A couple of them even shed a couple tears. I saw it. And I'm sure that it was because maybe they wished they had the guts to do something like that too. This made me feel really proud of myself. The absolute most memorable part of that night was leaving the bar and walking to the train station to go home. I remember a feeling of pure loneliness standing on that train platform in the cold night air. It was still March in Canada, still cold, leaving downtown Calgary for the last time. I was toting my messenger bag with the last of my things from my desk at work and taking the train for the last time until who knows when. And it was after that day, my final day of work, that all the other harsh realities of leaving home crashed down on me. Once it became totally real, it felt oddly sad. Like you're a real lone wolf in the world when you decide to leave your friends and your family and your identity and your security behind. I was the most sad and worried to be leaving my son. At the time, he was 18 and he had been living on his own already in an apartment downtown for a couple of months. And my relationship with him, though, was unrealistically tight. We had a bond that I wonder if all mothers and sons have, or was it just us? We were almost appendages to each other. And I figure it's probably because I raised him on my own his whole life. Here's a funny and true story. I actually went to therapy before quitting my job to get permission to make this bold and brave move in my life. I had tremendous guilt about even having hopes and dreams when I should just be a mother instead. And the therapist basically bitch slapped me when I told him my feelings about that. And he was reminding me that my son was 18 and legally an adult, and he didn't even live at home anymore. He certainly wasn't going to come back home if I suddenly decided to cancel my hopes and dreams for him. Departure day arrived too quickly, and I distinctly remember being the only person on my flight crying on the way to Jamaica. As we taxied out to the runway, tears were streaming down my cheeks, and I think the people beside me thought I was either like mentally unstable or that maybe I had a huge fear of flying. Like, who the hell cries on their way to Jamaica. Fast forward to my arrival. Seeing the island approach from my window seat for the 15th time was still fresh and new, but I saw it in a whole different light this time, knowing it would be my home for the coming months. Almost all the fretting of my departure faded away as we descended, and my time had finally come. If you have ever planned and replanned something for so many years, and then it finally happens, you know the feeling of triumph that I'm talking about right now. I felt so free that this was the first time I had landed there with zero agenda. No one was waiting to pick me up at the airport. No cramming to see all my Jamaican friends in a limited amount of time. You know, when you're on vacation for like 2 weeks, you have to see everybody. No living out of a suitcase. This was my time, and it was here. I didn't even tell anyone in Jamaica what time I was arriving because I felt like that moment had to be just mine. It had to be quiet and sacred and just mine. So I sat at the little bar outside the arrival doors at Sangster, and I just slow sipped my first rum and coke back home. After about 45 minutes, finally a guy walked up to me and asked if I was Christy, and I was like, yes, I'm Christy. And he helped me wheel my baggage over to the vehicle that would be mine for my first month. And when I saw it, it suited me just fine. The rental agent and I drove to Ocho Rios together. I filled out the paperwork in the street. And at last I was on my own and headed for home. So I had found myself an apartment 4 months earlier and in Jamaica, so I had a place to go already, and I could not wait to see it again. I remember walking through the gate to my veranda. It all felt as familiar as it did when I was there last, but when I opened the door to my apartment, I was actually shocked at the size. It felt so much bigger than I had remembered. And that familiar, musty, kind of dampy smell, it just made me smile. I flipped on all the lights, did a walkthrough into my gigantic bedroom to check out my gigantic king-size bed with fresh sheets on it, all made up nicely. I had an acquaintance, lady friend of mine, who took care of the place when I was away, and she had come in that morning before my arrival to get everything fresh and ready for me that day. I was pleasantly satisfied, and I felt like I was home. I made a point to first unpack little familiar things I brought, like my journal. Journal books are a non-negotiable for me. Photos to put on my dresser, and a stuffed animal that was my son's from when he was a baby, and a few mementos that also related to him. I also set up all my girly things on the dresser in front of the mirror, like smelly lotions, earrings, and hair products. And the last thing I did was put my clothing into the dressers and the closet. Somehow it still all felt a little bit temporary though, because this was the first time I had ever moved away. And it would take some getting used to that I don't have to pack up and leave again next week or 2 weeks down the road. My honeymoon with my apartment didn't even last 2 hours before my phone rang, and it was my Jamaican brother saying, "You've been on the island for 5 hours and I've not seen you yet." God, I love Jamaica. I mean, at that point, I had been in Canada for 39 years and no one has ever said that to me. That first night, I walked out onto my veranda and remember thinking, I actually did it. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally just breathe. Just breathe. What I didn't know, though, was that the hardest part of this story hadn't even started yet. I had a blog, I had $3,000, and I had absolutely no plan for how I was going to survive. And that's where everything began. So for context, this was in 2011. So I had already had 8 years of Jamaica behind me and 8 more years to come until I ultimately pulled the plug and put it all in my back pocket for safekeeping. And then here we are. And this story is to be continued. Thank you for watching today. My name is Christy and you're watching Jamaica Made Me Do It. I would really love if you would like this video, subscribe to my channel because the story just continues on, and feel free to leave a comment. If you have ever left home, like quit a career, left your family, left your job, and moved abroad, whether you succeeded or failed. I would love to hear about that in the comments, honestly. So yeah, drop your comments below, and I will see you next time here at Jamaica Made Me Do It. Thanks for watching.